In this video, we're going to start to make a new level, this time using tile map. So I do encourage you to play around a bit more even than just following along with this video. Try making some objects and levels on your own here using tile map. You don't want to go too overboard with that though, because we are going to be making changes and readjusting the level as we progress. Because I'm going to be showing you a much simpler way to even make our platforms with tile map very shortly. But before we get into that, I want to get you some practice on actually creating and painting a bit of a level. So first thing, I'm just going to zoom out here. And now if I go to my eraser tool here, I'm just going to erase what I have in the current level. So now it's empty. Now I'm going to go back up to my prefabs folder. And now that we're using tile map, it's going to be a bit of a combination of what we've done previously as well as tile map. So we're going to be using tile map to create the main level layout, the background, the platforms, things like that. But every other object in our game is still going to be placed manually like we did in the last section. So for instance, our background, our floating platforms, when we start adding enemies in and our obstacles like the boulders, those are still going to be placed in manually, and they're just going to go kind of almost over top of our tile map. So we already made the background prefab, so let's just drag that in here. And now because this is a new scene, we have to go to the global lights. And for the sorting layers, we want to set it to everything. So this way it's going to light up all layers of our game. Okay, so now we have our background. And for now, we can just make that a child of our main camera. So now if we select our main camera and we go to our scripts folder, we can add on our camera controller. And now let's go to our prefabs and let's also drag in the game manager. So now we have the game manager, but look, we do have to set some of these objects up. So first thing, we don't know what the player is. So let's select the actual game manager prefab here. And let's drag the player in here. So now if I select this game manager, it knows what the player is. So all of them are going to have the player now. Now we can't do that with the spawn position because that's always going to be a different spot. So let's leave that for now because we don't actually have a level yet. And let's start painting. So let's select our tile map. I'm going to select the ground tile map. And now you can see the grid here. So I'm going to take this one first. I'm going to start making this platform. So I'm going to go here to place it. And now notice what happened. I clicked to place it and I can see the outline, but I can't see it. And this is just like when we were dealing with our sprites with the sorting layers. So if we have our ground tile map selected and we look in the tile map renderer component here, we can see we have the sorting layer. So just like before, we just have to set this to platforms and now we can see it. Okay, so I'm going to paint a platform here. Okay, so now I have that one. And let's make this style of platform. So it's got the rounded edges, so I'm going to set this one here. We'll use the same middle. Okay, so now I'm going to put this angle pointy one here. So I'll do this. I'll make this one a bit bigger. Okay, so you can see how quick and easy this is now. And I can hit the Q key and now I can start panning around using this hand icon. And then we can keep building our level here. Now we could also use these ones here. And we could start adding larger platforms. So I can paint this so it goes off screen. So now if we look at our camera, we see that we have this style of platform here. Maybe add one more. Okay, so you can see this is really starting to make creating our level easy. We basically just go and draw it piece by piece as we go. Then if I need to move some of these, so if I decided, say I want to make this platform a bit bigger, I can select the selection icon here. I can select this one. Now that it's selected, I can hit move. And now I can go and move it. So I can drag it out. Now let's go back to paint. And I can add 2 more. Okay, so in this video, I'm not going to make very much of a level here yet. I just wanted to start making this so we can demo it. But one thing I want to show is if we now go into our game, and in our game manager, we have to set the spawn position of where the player is going to spawn. So I'm going to create an empty object here. So I'm going to use the shortcut again, Control-Shift-N. I'm going to call this player spawn position. I'm going to reset it. And now with W for the move tool, I'm going to set it to be right above this platform here. Okay, so that's our spawn position. To tell the game manager, we have to go in here and we have to drag it into here. Okay, so now we have that. And one other thing to look at quickly here, we see our current player. And remember, this is the actual player once he spawns. We don't need to see this in the inspector. Now, the reason we're seeing it here is previously we've been using serialized field in our script to display things we want to see. But I also mentioned anything public is going to show up in here as well. Now, in this case, we don't want to really see this current player object. Because anything we do to the current player, we're only going to do in code, not the inspector here. So let's open our game manager script. And if we go up to the top here, we see our current player. So it's set to public so we can access it from other scripts. Doing something like this in these brackets, this is what's called an attribute. There's another one we can use here, and it kind of does the opposite of serialized field. So serialized field takes a private variable and makes it show up in the inspector so we can modify it. So what we can do is we can use hide in inspector. And what this is going to do is it's going to take a public variable and make it not visible. So other scripts can still access it fine, but we won't see it in the inspector here. So we can't accidentally modify it or do anything while we're running our game. Okay, so we now have a reference to this player spawn position. So this is basically set up like our old game. So I'm going to hit Control S to save. And now watch what's going to happen when I run the game. So our players spawned, and they just fall. So it spawned a little low. Let's drag it up just to make sure that wasn't a coincidence. And we run the game, and now same thing. So this is because in our last section, we made these platforms as prefabs, and then we added colliders onto them. So right now with tile map, these are just images. They have no collision whatsoever. So that's something we're going to have to add in future videos. So for now, before moving on, I recommend play around with this a bit, get used to how to paint with these tiles. And you may even want to make some other palettes here. So if you want to create a new palette, you can do that here. Or you can just even add other art into the same palette. So if you prefer to have it all in one spot. But practice around with that because this is something you're going to use a lot in 2D games and you want to become very comfortable with it. The only way to do that is by using it and practicing. Okay, so I will see you in the next video. In this video, we're going to start adding some water to our game and we're going to give it its own layer on the tile map. So currently we have the grass platform palette we made. Now, a lot of stuff you'll want to end up making your own palette for different types of objects you use in your game. So a lot of the time I'll keep platforms on one palette and then miscellaneous environment items on another. But in this case, since it's going to be level based, we're not likely to mix different styles of platform terrain in one level, or at least not too many. So it makes sense to add the water to this palette, just so we're not flipping back and forth between multiple palettes. So again, like I said, this is something that you generate over time how you want your workflow to work. And the way you approach one game to the next is going to vary depending on the type of game and levels you make. So the way I like doing the palettes is if I'm constantly using that item while working in this palette, to me, it probably belongs in this palette because I don't want to have to start clicking and switching between palettes every time I do something. But then other people have the approach that they like making all the platforms and everything first, and then they go back and they add water and other things later. So again, completely your preference how you want to approach that. So for me, I'm going to keep it on this palette for now. We're going to make more palettes shortly though. Now for the packs I'm using, I'm going to go into the sprites folder. It's in the Kenny Platformer Redux pack. And they're PNG, and then they're in the tiles folder. So if I go down here, there's water, which this is the part where we see water with no top. And then we have two icons for the top. We have a high water and low water. So I'm going to add all of these to my palette. The one thing though, remember, currently they're set to 100 pixels per unit and they're 128 by 128. So we just want to change the 3 of these to 128. Now hit apply. And now I'm just going to drag these 3 into my palette right here. Now where I save them, I'm going to save them back to the same tiles folder, grass platforms. Okay, so now we have the water here. And I'm just going to quickly edit this here. So I'm going to move this one below. And I'm going to move this one up. Just so I have the tops at the top and then the full water here. So exit edit mode now. Okay, and now we can start painting with them. But before we do that, I want to make a separate layer. So right now, if we look at our tile maps, we have a ground tile map. And if you look in the info here in the inspector, for the sorting layer, we set it to be on platforms. And it's not actually on a layer. So we could actually change this and set it to ground, which we're going to need to do. So let's do that now. But if we were to paint water on here, it would be treated as the platform sorting layer and the regular layer of ground, which means our player would be able to walk on this if it has a collider on it. So we don't actually want that. We want to keep them separated. So we're going to make a new tile map. So let's select tile maps. And I'm going to right click. Let's go to 2D object, tile map, rectangular. Now I'm going to call this one water tile map. So now we have full control over this. So for a sorting layer, we don't currently have anything for water, but we're going to want to make that. So let's come back to that. First, let's look at our layer. So we don't really have anything other than the built-in water, which could work in this case, or we could make a separate layer that's for any kind of hazard in our game. So for now, I'm just going to use the water layer. But as we progress, if we decide we want to add other things in, say we have spikes on the ground and just random obstacles that can end up killing or making our player respawn, we could add all of those to the same layer. And a lot of that comes down to how you plan your game. And what I mean by that is you need to think ahead of time how you're going to approach that. Because if we went this approach, that would cause problems down the line if we have a health system in our game. So if we have a health system, we need to treat how you hit water on the ground differently than how you hit an enemy on a platform. Because in most games, say something like Super Mario Brothers, with the exception of the water world, if you fall in the water, you instantly die and you have to respawn. Whereas if you hit an enemy, if you're a big character or you have power up, you're just going to lose a status and go back. So you would have to treat those different. But if it's a platformer where you don't have a health system and one hit causes you to die and respawn, then using the same layer works. So for right now, we're going to use the water and we'll decide how we're going to approach that as we progress. Now, what we need to do is when we're starting to paint objects, it's really important that we make sure we select which tile map we're painting to. So if you forget to change this and you're on the water tile map, but you're painting using ground, it's going to treat everything you painted on the ground tile map, not water. So we need to make sure this is set on water right now, not ground. Okay, and then we can decide, let's go back to our scene. So if we look here, or we can go back here and select our camera, we can kind of see the line of where the camera finishes. So this is the last grid that we're going to see on screen. So we have to decide how high we want our water. I think I'm going to make one tile of solid water and then put the top on it. So make sure water tile map is selected here. I'm going to select the full water first. So I'm going to paint this one here. And notice nothing is happening. Again, you probably figured out what's going on here, just like before, is our sorting layer. So let's go to our water tile map, sorting layer, and we need to build a layer here. So this is where it kind of depends how you want it to be, where you want your water. So I'm going to add a sorting layer. I'm going to call this water. Let's go to our water tile map and let's assign it. Okay, so we have water. So now it's on front of everything. I don't necessarily like this because I want my platforms to be in front of the water. So I'm just going to draw a bit more water. And I'm going to go one tile below just in case anything happens if our camera accidentally pans down or something. I don't want to have the camera pick up anything below the screen. So this way it'll just look like more water. Now I think I'm going to go with the low water. So yeah, if we look at that here, that'll look nice. We still have a bit of a platform sticking out of the water that we can jump on, but it's very close. Okay, so let's figure out how we want this. So if we go to our sorting layer, let's go to add sorting layer, and now we can figure out where we want to place this. So I need it definitely in front of the background. So if we put it here, it's gone. If we go to the background, now it's above the background, but the platforms stick out in front of it. So let's see how this looks. Okay, let's move it one more. Now I think for my game, I think this is how I'm going to go. You can decide how you want to approach this on yours if you want it to look different. So you decide which layers go where. I want to give you lots of freedom in this game. You don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing here. I think this works for our water layer, so let's just hit play. And now our player obviously falls, but we noticed, okay, so we have to put water a bit more this way because the camera is going. So let's just put some little buffer zone here. That should be more than enough. Okay, so now at least it shows on the full level here. So it looks a bit weird with the background and everything, but now we can at least start moving things around and seeing how they look real time in the game. Okay, so now we have two layers in our game for our tile map. We have water and our platforms, and I will see you in the next video.